and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Acebo.
And we are joined once again by a special guest, a returning guest, in fact, but now with a master's in education. It's
Colleen Dennis.
Woo-woo!
Hey, still Acebo to me, but you know.
Well, yeah.
It's Andrew's sister. And previous week's guest, Brendan's sister as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's just all kinds of Acebos running around this place.
Yeah, watch out.
Dylan's house is a mess.
And Colleen's on this episode because we got an angry text when the first episode published that said, "You're doing Search for Whit. Why am I not on?"
True story, because this was my favorite. I loved the Search for Whit.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I'm pretty sure the reason why that tape was missing from the library was not because of Brendan. That was me.
It was you.
That was me.
Okay.
Yes.
Did the church library have more than one copy of that album? Do you know?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
And both times the tapes were missing.
Yep. And one of them was Adam.
Yep.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
No one was.
You guys
Brendan
both
joke.
ruined my child. This could have
so
been
sorry.
the episode that I listened to the most as well. But between the Deckard household and the Acebo household, I never got to listen
We ruined
to
it for you.
So instead, I've listened to this episode. I don't know. This is maybe my third time this week.
Really?
Yeah. Like I listened to it a couple times growing up, but this was not like a landmark episode for me in the way it was for everyone else.
No, it was like...
Because I didn't have access to it.
I never had access to all
weekly,
three parts.
But it was close to weekly for a while. Yeah. Listen to it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a quality episode, but I'm much more close to Dylan, where I don't really I couldn't remember the beat by beat plot points of this arc in the way that I can for so many other episodes of Odyssey.
Well, this one's much older than the ones that you were listening to.
Yes and no. So I feel like this came out in an era that I was that I did listen to, and I did listen to it on the radio. On the website, in middle school and stuff. I did circle back around to it, but as far as the VHS, I'm sorry, the cassette tapes that we had
That were in a VHS case.
that were in
True
a
story.
VHS case.
They looked like they were in the Disney VHS
Oh yeah,
case.
the real thick ones.
The white ones.
Yeah.
With the border that you could cut your finger on.
Right.
Because it would
Yeah.
split open.
Yes, in this wasn't
Weaponry.
really plastic, but it was kind of plastic. What happened there?
Fabric.
How did
fabric.
we? Yeah, I mean, it was kind of vinyl, maybe. It was
Yeah.
vinyl-y, but I don't understand how we wound up in that situation where that was a thing. Because most VHS tapes
otherwise
just
they'd
had
be,
the cardboard
in little
sleeves.
Tiny,
Right.
tape,
Yeah.
individual tapes, and they wanted to group them together.
Right. No, I get that. I'm just I don't know why Disney has the weird clamshell. And then why Odyssey went we're going to take that same format, we're going to redesign it so that it fits 6 cassettes. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be our thing.
Well, Disney's had to become collector's items later, so,
Yeah,
there's
that's
that.
true.
Yeah, maybe that's what they were trying to future-proof themselves.
I mean, look, I think plenty of people did collect them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they have increased in value? I can't imagine.
I have no idea.
I doubt it.
Yeah,
I feel like every week there's someone posting on, eBay, here's my entire collection of Odyssey. Please get rid of this. I no longer have a use for it.
I have 2 Sterilite bins filled with Odyssey cassettes.
Yeah.
Please.
Yep.
My wife is threatening to leave me.
Yeah. I think that would be a good centerpiece for your future apartment, Andrew, if just you had bookshelves, but rather than books, it was just all the Odyssey cassettes.
No, so what I was going to say is you know how coffee tables, they have clear lacquer on top? And yeah, just put a bunch of cassette tapes in there and the album artwork, you could have them all lined up next to each other, or you could have it spread out a little, like a scatter.
No, you put them spine up. Just the spines.
There
You're
you
looking
go.
down on a bookcase.
That, actually, I don't hate
I think that would look kind of cool.
Yeah, that would
Not
look
gonna lie.
sick. It'd make it really hard to get to my cassettes, though.
Oh, yeah, because
Well, you wouldn't
how
get to them.
often
Yeah.
would you get to, you need to
would
use
just look
those?
at them.
Yeah.
Or, you can probably hinge top on one of those things.
Oh, yeah,
That
be
would
cool.
get pretty complicated.
Yeah, you don't like the, taking everything off your coffee table, which are always very organized to
Yeah.
get the stuff underneath. Maybe drawers. Maybe
We
you have
ditched
drawers.
our
Drawers
coffee
underneath,
table
yeah.
because it was just always messy.
Yeah, coffee tables are just a place for junk to collect. And so I have an ottoman.
That's fair. I would argue that ottomans are just a place for junk to collect.
I'm
But
avoiding it
it's
so
hidden.
far.
True.
There you go.
All right. We don't have a promo this week because it's a 3-parter and the same promo is used for all 3 weeks, even though the wiki has it tagged slightly wrong, which is not a fight, I'm willing to fight right now. But if you are the person who's in control of that, hey. So we can just get into the text of the episode itself. I don't know. You like this episode, Colleen?
Yes, but out of the 3, it's my least favorite.
Oh, interesting.
I know. She said that to me before we recorded like a couple days ago, and I was just absolutely floored by this. You need to defend yourself.
Okay. If you look at a good story, right?
Yeah.
The climax was in the second part. The build-up was in the first part. So we just get all the resolution, and it almost seems like it's a little too fast.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm with Colleen. This is the weakest of the 3, hands down.
Okay.
I
This
really
is
like
such
the
a weird
second
fizzle.
one.
It
for
is a
this
very
story.
weird fizzle.
Like, my favorite was the second one.
Yeah.
Because that's where Whit shows up.
Yeah, well, and
you,
it's a
like-
little bit more about, like, them being in another country, and you kind of get, like, the cross of Cortez of it all, where, yeah, it's kind of like them navigating a foreign country and all that hijinks and going to new places and stuff.
And you have enough that you know what's going on, but not enough that you're like, oh, I know exactly what's happening next.
Yeah, certainly.
But the episode starts out with Eugene and Jason are talking, and then Eugene branches off, and Jason stays there, and Eugene says bye, and then Tasha walks in.
Right.
Because they don't have the weird, it doesn't start with the Jason, Tasha,
Yeah.
and then Eugene has to excuse himself. He actually leaves first this time, and he says Godspeed to Jason, which I really should say more.
It's fun.
I think
love
Godspeed is really good and would kind of fit my thing.
saying, yes. It
As
does.
a person who says folks all the time, I feel like I could say Godspeed and get away with it.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's totally on point.
undoubtedly. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to work on that. You guys hold me accountable, okay?
Certainly.
that.
You have not said Godspeed yet. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to expect 1 per letterboxd review for the next 6 months.
I don't think that would work, but okay.
I think
My
that's
next
probably, yeah.
my next review is just Godspeed. No notes,
Yeah.
nothing. It's just
Or
yep.
you could sign all of your reviews like Godspeed, Dylan Weaver.
Godspeed, Dylan. Yeah, so this is, so Eugene excuses himself. Jason and Tasha are talking. He confronts, she comes in, she gives him a nice big hug. It's cute. We don't, it's not nothing said about it, but we hear it, which is, it always surprises me how well this show does at making hugs sound.
Right?
That's a pretty quiet action.
Yeah.
And they, just capture it well in the audio form.
Clothes rustling.
And then they get, I don't know, Jason gets at Tasha's throat pretty quick again. And we're talking about he's accusing the agency of bugging his room.
Yep.
Which she doesn't admit to, but does. And
She
then,
doesn't deny it.
right. And then he's, throws out that he thinks that Alfred Brownlee is working for the agency. And she does confirm that.
Right.
And then he just goes full force and is like, I think you enjoy all of this and your job too much. How do you even know what truth is at this point? I think Tasha at this point is lost in the labyrinth of lies.
Oh, certainly. Yes.
I don't know. I feel like he goes from 0 to 60 real fast. There's being really good at your job and able to manage a lot of smoke and mirrors because that is her job.
Yep.
And then there's also getting actually lost in it. And I don't think she's lost. I think she just really likes her job and he can't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
that
I
is
get from this.
definitely true. The other thing that I think it's interesting, viewing this episode in the greater Odyssey context, where I guess at this point Jason has left his spy days behind him, But he's about to go full force back into it for the rest of his time.
Right.
Yeah.
Until eventually, I guess, he retires at J&J Antiques, which is now Triple J. But, like, it's funny that he's, like, playing, like, small town guy and, like, accusing her of being an adrenaline junkie when I'm like, no, Jason, this is also you. Like, you're, like, during this season able to, like, kind of pretend like it isn't, but, like, you get a taste of it and you go full-fledged.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. No.
He loves the spy thing.
Well, yeah, and the whole
so
thing
it's
is that
funny
he used
that,
to
like,
do it.
Right. It's funny that he seems so removed and like he doesn't understand the appeal anymore in these episodes.
Yeah.
When it's like, dude, we're coming hot off Blackguard, in which you like formed an army of children.
Yeah.
And like I know you feel bad about that by the end of it, but like you're not
over her. And by her, I mean the agency.
Yeah. Like it's just funny for him to play it as though like I'm above it and I don't get it. And I'm like, are you? Do you?
Certainly not, in my opinion.
Well, and maybe he just thinks that he should be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because this is his downtime.
Right.
And he did want to get married. So maybe he's looking to slow down.
Yeah.
Not that he does, but...
Right. He might kind of be in denial right now, or
Yeah.
be at least trying to play the part of small town guy. It's just funny that like he's rebelling against it so hard in a way where it's just like, yeah, but you do fundamentally understand the appeal here, Jason, even if
Right.
you're pretending you don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like...
No, I agree 100% with the whole... Yeah, and yeah, it's a... Like, they're asking you to suspend disbelief in thinking that Jason is actually, like... Yeah, like, he wouldn't understand the high of working, or just even the personal benefits of, you know, working for the agency and the enjoyment that, like, having a job well done can provide you.
Yeah. They're just really trying to play him up as, like, small town guy who can't deal with his secret agent girlfriend. And it's like, 2 seconds ago, you were a secret agent.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they also need him to play more of John Avery's son and less of an adult that has done this before.
Sure.
No, I agree. And I also think that it serves to try and pit the audience against Tasha in a way that I feel like the show is kind of like presenting it in a way that, like, at least before, where she wasn't sure that she wanted to quit the agency and Jason was like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? Like, just leave it behind. That's what I did. She goes back to it and then she gets really into it and there's these problems and he doesn't, you know, air quotes, doesn't understand. I feel like
they're laying the groundwork now for them to break up.
Yeah, which is miserable and terrible and, like, doesn't make sense given their characters and everything that's happened. I don't know.
It's like
Not a great Tasha episode, only because she was written terribly.
Yeah, which is kind of how I feel about these three. Like, I don't know. It's not that the Tasha Jason interplay is written weird. I don't know that Tasha herself is written that poorly through all of this. Like, I feel like she's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And Jason's the one who's a little bit more all over the place.
Have you noticed the strong, independent females don't do well in relationships in Odyssey?
Yeah.
Just in general.
Uh-huh. Looking at you, Mayor Margaret Faye. We'll be covering you later.
I mean, yeah, even Connie is, like, a strong, independent woman in the Odyssey world and is famously single.
Yeah.
Well, now she is.
I mean, she got one relationship, but, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, but, like, now she's a strong, independent female. When she was in her relationship, she was not.
Yeah.
True.
She was very needy.
True. I would say before her relationship, though, she did have a little bit more independence.
That's true.
And that there was definitely regression, but in the character.
And Connie swings wildly episode to episode depending on who's writing her.
Yeah.
If there's anything we've learned doing this show, it's that like she has like every other character is either consistent or has an arc, and Connie, you cannot plot, is just all over the place.
Yep.
In this episode, she's a Whit stand-in. In this episode, she's like a petulant high schooler.
Yeah.
Were those two episodes next to each other? Yeah. Does that
course.
matter? No.
No, why would it?
Yeah. But yeah, and at this point, Jason lobs the question at Tasha, which that I brought up last episode, which is like, why are you here? Is this not like an emotional conflict of interest? And Tasha's like, no, that's the whole reason I'm here. The agency was counting on the fact that I would know you. And that's when Jason's like, well, do you know what I'm going to do now? And she's like, walk away. And then he's like, yep. And walks away.
What a jerk move.
I mean, you're not playing the part well, sir.
Yeah.
No. I mean, okay. I understand he walked out. But neither of them were being good to each other.
No.
She shouldn't have taken the job and taken another job instead.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And Jason should actually, communicate.
Respect his fiance's independence and autonomy to make choices for herself. Yeah. I know it's a hard concept for some of us to grasp, but
yeah, their whole thing is weird here because like we find out later that like that hug was so that Tasha could plant a bug. Mm-hmm. It's just like on one hand I'm like
the bug hug.
Oh, the bug hug. I don't know how a relationship survives this much like nonsense, but I'd be willing to find out.
I mean,
I'm messy. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it seems messy, but also, I don't know. The idea of dating a spy. I've heard of worse,
Yeah.
Oh, there's the whole TV show about it. It's actually kind of fun.
What?
It's called The Company You Keep.
Oh, never heard of it.
It's good.
Yeah.
Milo Vegementilia.
Oh, hey, we like him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What a hunk.
Yeah.
True story.
We then get to Tasha leaves. We cut to Eugene talking to Whit. Whit is pretending to be a custodian and says, like, don't turn around.
Don't turn around. I'm pretending to be a custodian.
Yep.
Like, what the hell?
Uh-huh. And then Jason shows up and explains how he ditched his tail by going bus, taxi. Mm-hmm. And Eugene explains that he ditched his tail by ducking into someone and putting on, a hat.
He
and
ducked
then,
into a crowd of a lot of tourists and then hid behind a stand and then put on a turban and then came out of the crowd.
There you go.
Costume change.
Mm-hmm.
Believing he looked like an entirely different person.
I agree. He does. If he removed the glasses, who would he even be?
I don't think he has eyes if he takes them off.
Unfortunately, the new artwork does give Eugene eyes. But in my heart...
Yeah, in my heart, it's old eyes.
He does a costume change, and then Whit's like, can you guys stop being so self-congratulatory? We do actually have things to discuss.
Yeah.
And the things to discuss is that they're hopping on a bus because they're going on a bone hunt.
Yep, they're hunting for the bones of Christ.
Thinking about that, like... Oh, geez. And then they get surprised when they actually show up in, like, a tomb.
Uh-huh.
You're looking for bones.
Yep.
Right.
Where
bones
did you think
tend
they
to
were
hang
gonna
out
be?
in tombs.
Right.
In my personal opinion. Experience.
Ideally, if they're not in the tombs, then we have problems. Or cause for celebration. It really depends on the bones.
So I like Eugene's little...
If bones weren't in the tomb for Jesus, empty tomb...
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying if we found the bones elsewhere, that would be cause for celebration.
Yes, thank goodness we found the bones of Christ at the top of a mountain.
Well, maybe he walked away.
Actually, that would be kind of sick if there was like
when he ascended, the skeleton
the
just stayed behind. Uh-huh. Yeah, that would... Oh, wait, during the transfiguration, not even during the ascension.
Yeah.
Transfiguration.
It's Moses and Elijah, and then just the skeleton of Christ. Listen
would
to
be
him.
terrifying.
He is my son.
Oh my god.
All right, Andrew, start that cult.
Gotta go find those bones
Amen.
on the mountain.
Bone cult.
Bone cult.
So Whit explains that like he had his own dig site that was separate because Dr. Baines, who was the previous guy who then Eugene is just here in this episode to like mansplain everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like he's just an exposition machine, and he's like, Dr. Baines, that's the guy who called you to be on this expedition when, and that's why you left Odyssey. And I'm like, thanks, Eugene. But Whit's like, yeah, I had this separate dig that no one knew about that was in the woods. And I'm like, no one knew you were like sneaking away to go to another dig site constantly? Like you were there to be at one dig site with other people.
I think you might have been moonlighting at another dig site.
This man has not slept in the
6
2
months.
years since he's left.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just running on coke.
Well, and I mean, he's not taking care of kids all the time, so he's actually getting a decent level of sleep when he sleeps.
Yeah.
True.
Wow.
That is valuable. And I mean, I can't imagine, how stress-free his life is. There's no television.
Well, Whit's never been a television
No,
guy.
no, I know, but there's not a television for miles at this dig site.
Well, and he can't
There can be no
contact anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Or if he does, it's just through broken, broken
Jesus in the
voicemails
desert
and
with
shipped
God.
cassettes, all the fun stuff.
That is not even close,
no.
but okay.
Brendan's was so much
Yeah,
better.
it was really good.
You shouldn't have tried. And so
I think that might be the
you
beginning.
want to keep going, Andrew?
Yeah.
You want to interrupt me? So so they like are approaching this dig site, and Jason points out that there's a helicopter that's been circling above them. And so they decide to hide from the helicopter. They're just going to sprint for where they need to go.
Yeah. I'm going to throw them off the trail by leading them right to it.
Yeah, at that point, I think they were just ready to duck away and get what needed to be done.
That's fair.
We're getting very functional here. And so then they run, they like walk through this thing, they move something, and suddenly they're in Whit's dig site.
Yeah, they're in this tunnel.
Yeah.
There's like a
Oh,
bush.
yeah, it's the tunnel.
Yeah.
A tunnel. They move a bush, and there's a tunnel. I'm just
Whit's
gonna keep saying tunnel.
Yeah. Dig a
Odyssey
tunnel.
loves a tunnel.
They do.
They
really
they have a
love
lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a child, I always wanted to dig a tunnel.
right?
Yeah. Yeah,
still,
but which came
as an
first?
adult, I wanted to
Odyssey or your desire to tunnel?
The desire to tunnel,
Yeah.
because my best friend's dad used to tell us stories like before bed about tunnels, and like they would lead to different storybook places.
Oh, storybook places.
Yeah,
See,
it was like a bedtime story. And he also had one that was like doors, kind of like
Interesting.
the magician's
That-
nephew
yeah.
situation.
Colleen, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Love the
Yep.
Magician's Nephew.
Oh, bedtime stories with Mr. Bailey.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they arrive at the tunnel, and then this is where we start to explain that this area was like the document, and this area could be traced back to extremist like Jewish Sadducees.
That was it. Tau?
Yeah, right. There's a Hebrew letter of Tau that then like corresponds to these people, and we've got this tunnel of tombs. And this is very like we talked about it a little bit last week with Brendan, but like very Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yes.
With the like extremist Jewish sect is like kind of the whole Dead Sea Scrolls thing, except this one ties it way more into the story of Christ than what like the Dead Sea Scrolls are. But like they're pulling from that same kind of mythology. And the document that Whit found, it's revealed, claims to have been written by Judas Iscariot, who wrote the document and then like moved the bones because the story goes like that the disciples stole the bones, which is like a classic heresy
Yeah.
explanation of like, hey, this is how that this is how
weren't there.
Jesus,
Yeah.
resurrection actually happened, and it's like they bribed the guards to steal the bones. And in this, it's like you've got that same thing, but then you're doing, but then Judas like doesn't like feels really bad about that, and so he moves the bones, which I can't quite track what the logic is there, but it won't be the first time I say those words.
Especially with this, this episode and the rapid exposition, let's tie everything up so it makes sense, air quotes.
Yeah. And so we get the spot where Judas hid the bones was like underneath a crown of, or like was underneath a symbol for suffering. And so they're looking for a cross and they're not finding it. And then Eugene finds what he thinks are thistles, but is actually a crown of thorns. And that's where it is. And then in walks everyone else.
Yep.
Well,
everybody was following them.
Before he has like his like small crisis of faith too.
Oh,
yeah.
Fair.
I really appreciate it because with Whit being gone for so long, I felt like they addressed it in a way that Whit totally would. It felt very authentic to him.
Yeah.
So,
and by that, it was Whit saying, trust the Bible, not what anybody else is saying.
well, yeah, like we walk by faith and
Yeah.
not by sight.
Certainly.
And just because somebody says it's one way doesn't mean it actually is. And if it is true, the science is going to back it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we could find bones and they wouldn't be Jesus's. But
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Which,
Yeah.
yes, because like Jason's
Those are
just
at the
kind
top
of
of a
been
mountain.
like, yeah, Jason's been kind of just shrugging it off every time Eugene has an issue, and Whit actually is like,
Addresses
no,
it.
like let's talk about
Right.
this. Like, like Jason's really good at establishing like, yeah, this doesn't give me any concern, but he can't communicate to Eugene why it shouldn't give Eugene concern.
Well, and that's the difference between Jason and Whit.
Yep.
Is because Whit is all about the relationship and
Right.
Jason is not.
Right. Jason's got it figured out for himself, but he doesn't really need or have the ability to communicate that to those around him. That is what Jack is there for.
Right.
And only to communicate if he is asked to communicate.
Right. Jack will
Otherwise,
not
he just-
provide information, but
He will
Yeah.
stand there and absorb it all until
the most
requested to dispense.
reactionary person.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you said, everybody shows up. Everybody was following them. The helicopter, Tasha, before Tasha gets there,
Yeah. So
Stephen Charles, Benjamin,
correct. So
Alfred Brownlee.
right. So Professor Charles walks in and reveals that he followed Eugene. And then Benjamin walks in with a gun, but they're careful to not say that it's a gun. They just like vaguely refer to it as a weapon. And like we hear the
And you
sound.
hear the sound.
But like,
Which was so good.
yeah, it feels like a very conscious choice to be like, we're not trying to put this one behind like our this is for adult audience tag or whatever. Listen with your parents.
Right.
Yeah.
They're trying to be like, yeah, this one can be listened to by kids, so we're just gonna fudge it a little bit.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
just gonna skirt the being held at gunpoint.
Right.
It's gonna happen. It's just
Right.
they won't know unless they listen closely.
Yeah. And then Brownlee comes in, and so and Whit kind of surmises that Charles is working for the symposium.
Yeah.
Then Brownlee walks in, and Whit's like, you must be working for First Things. And then we find out, no, they're working together. And then so then they like dig up the casket, which is stone, and they're gonna open it up. And then at that point, Charles tells Benjamin to point the gun at Brownlee and is like, I don't actually need you. I just need this stuff. I want it to be me. You were just like a vehicle to get here and be a distraction. They open the casket. There are jars with parchment. And then Tasha walks in.
Because they're
And it's just this whole thing of like, we're double crossing you, and it's like it It is just kind of like ending with a whimper rather than a bang.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this should be like, there should be booby traps in here, or there should be some like I kept
like an
thinking
Indiana
about,
Jones situation,
right?
A rock, like a rock slide, something
Right.
like
Well,
that. Even
what
a
I
natural
kept
disaster. Would have
what
been
I
great.
kept thinking of was the Caves of Qumran, which
Yeah.
is the video episode that is like the like it's the Indiana Jones episode of the video show, which we covered as bonus content. If you give us $3, you can listen to all of that. But the deal with that episode is right. Like it ends with this like gambit where it's like, if you like keep the treasure, you're going to die. So you have to give up the treasure in order to like live and escape. And like
The real treasure isn't the treasure.
right. And it has this like really, it's both harrowing and like drives home the point of the rest of the episode and like a good message.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't do that. It's just kind of like, all these people are like double crossing each other in ways that I think probably enhanced by the fact that like we're doing this as a podcast, but like we're unsurprising and not particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and
maybe listening to it, when you're listening to all three back to back, it might be more fun. And if you don't know what's coming, it might be more fun. But like doing it the way we were doing it, I was just kind of like, oh, like I wanted like a grand finale.
it was just
and you just
anticlimactic.
right, you just
Yeah.
kind of gave me the stuff I already knew.
It
Well,
was kind of like they ran out of time and they didn't want to do a fourth episode.
Yeah, except that this episode has so much filler, or it's just like the episode feels like it's got like they spend so much time in the cave on this climax that is nothing. Where I'm like, you could have done something interesting with that time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then they have like the weird wrap up afterwards that's kind of useless.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really only serves to explain that Whit isn't coming back to Odyssey.
Yeah. And so Tasha shows up, and her and Jason have kind of a cute interplay where, you know, they're referring to each other with terms of endearment, but like kind of tongue in cheek about it. I don't know. It works for me. It's the kind of thing that I like. But the point is that, right, she put a tracker on Jason, has arrived there. She's now got a gun. So Benjamin drops his.
Yep.
And she's bringing them all in.
Yeah. Which is, again, like, I think for me contributed to the anticlimactic nature of it, where, like, it wasn't entirely clear that Benjamin did have a gun until she came in very clearly with a gun and told him to drop his. You know, and so, like, it felt like while there were stakes, it was just, like, a bunch of people mad at each other in a tunnel, and then Tasha comes in and is like, all right, you're all under arrest, and then that's the end of the episode. And, you know, I don't know. I think maybe the anticlimactic nature of it is probably why it doesn't stick in my head in the same, like, the plot of this episode doesn't stick in my head the same way as, you know, a Novacom or a Blackguard.
Well, I mean, both of those end in the most dramatic ways possible.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, Green Ring's pretty dramatic too.
Yeah.
Train crash. Let me think of something
Here's
else.
the train coming. It's coming around the bend.
Maury didn't end.
I don't think it ended. I think
fair.
that's the problem. But it's also bad through and through.
Through and
so.
through.
Anyway, I don't know. What do you have thoughts on this part? Like on all the double crossing? Like, is there a point? Like, what is the message we're trying to hammer home here?
Oh, deception. The world
I
wants
was
to
gonna
deceive
say,
you.
I think it's all just the lies, the deception, the lies, the fact that Jason and Tasha can't continue a relationship when there's so much deception going on in Tasha's life, and Jason doesn't want that right now, and it doesn't apparently have a place in Odyssey because Whit is still kind of with it and in it, so he's not going to be back in Odyssey.
Right. That's actually that's interesting because the whole thing we come to find out about the document is that it's all about deception.
Right.
And we find out that like neither the symposium or First Things actually existed.
Right.
Those were just like fake organizations to distract people from the like black market sale of artifacts. And so so you do have, and you've got the like guy pulls a gun, the double cross, the Jason calls it like a triple cross at one point, like they kind of lose track, and that's where like it gets muddy. But it is all coming back to that theme of like lies and deception. Interesting.
Yeah.
No, that's actually really good insight.
Well, and I would say that like by far the theme that probably Focus wants us to take from this is like trust in the word of the Lord, which is the Bible. And like that's the like you'll see the major points of tension, that's how they're resolved, like between Eugene and his faith and between Eugene and Whit and Jason and all of that, like when they're so lost and confused and what can we do with all of this deception and helplessness, like that's when the wonderful Sunday school answer of like Jesus and the Bible is what you should trust comes back, which is good and useful and valuable. I think it also serves to further cleave the divide between Jason and Tasha, because Jason is clearly very faith-oriented now in his retirement, compared to Tasha, who doesn't have any qualms about lying and deceiving people for the sake of her employment and such. Do I think that's good? I don't know. But I feel like that's what I took from it, was just like it doesn't matter how good or how compelling the lies are. Everybody's lying to you and you just need to believe the Bible.
Well, and we have this after Blackguard, which had all of the lies and the deceit happening hometown.
Yeah.
And so I think they have kind of intentionally pushed this abroad.
Yeah.
To come back to the integrity
Academia's
of
lying to you.
Odyssey, like being that quaint small town, nothing bad happens here situation, and all of that happens elsewhere.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is I like
that.
Yeah, a good read. So we find out then they have the documents analyzed in like as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So fast. I mean, it's still freaking
Like,
Eugene
don't
out.
touch
Actually,
it.
I guess
We know
before,
exactly what they are.
Before we know about the documents, we have the exchange between Jason and Tasha, which seems like an end to their relationship.
Yeah.
It is unclear if that is actually holds any finality, but it's just kind of Jason being like, I'm going to go back home to Odyssey. You're going to stay out here and keep doing your agent stuff. I don't think we're going to find common ground here. And you get the interesting thing where Jason leaves and Whit makes a comment to Eugene of like, I wish they had like talked it out more.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, so is Jason team or is Whit team Tasha?
Yeah, I think he is.
Is that like the implication there that he's like,
Jason has a hard time expressing his feelings in general. I think he's team Jason and just wants Jason to be able to have some closure there.
Yeah.
Be a man. Yeah. Talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
Well, and explore the options, because he's like, he doesn't stop and think for a very long period of time about really anything.
That's true. He's always on the go.
So just having that, like, no, you actually should talk this out, process it, step away. Like, you're engaged. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But
yeah. And then we find out about the document. Mm-hmm. And the deal there is that like it's a bunch of copy, like those jars contained a bunch of copies of the same like Gospel of Judas, this Q document that they found, but they also contained a letter that describes that this was all a ploy from the Sadducees to create like a false gospel to run counter to the gospels that were circulating at the time, to try and do that. And Whit speculates that like their plan wound up failing and they were doing this all like with the aid of Rome, but their plan failed when like the uprisings happened and Jerusalem got, burned to the ground, and Rome came in and just trampled all over everything. And that was kind of like where this story ended. Which is, I appreciate that like incorporating of
like a real
of
historical,
actual history. Like that part's cool. I dig
and they
that.
actually provided an explanation, which sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
I do, however, or I don't understand why, even though I understand their plan wasn't carried out the full way, why does the book that is supposed to disprove the gospel have instructions that lead to an explanation of how it is fake?
I always assumed there were two separate documents.
But Whit found the Q document,
right,
which was this Gospel of Judah. And that is how he was able to use the stuff in that to find out about the moving of the bones,
right,
which is how they found the casket. And the casket contained the letter that said all of this is a lie.
Right.
I feel like you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I feel like you shouldn't like
actually put that in writing. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
one, you shouldn't have that letter to begin with, and you shouldn't preserve it. Like, there's no reason to preserve that letter. The goal is to circulate this document that disproves everything. Why would you keep that letter ever? You burn that letter immediately. But two, if you're going to hide that letter, don't include instructions on how to get to that letter in the document that you're trying to send out.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like a weird circle where I'm like, the only clues Whit had to find the location of this casket was the Q document. And the casket contained the Q document and a document that said the Q document's a lie. And that just seems like a bad idea.
Well, I don't think it's the Q document's something else. He thought it was the Q initially, but then it's
sorry. Gospel of Judah.
Yeah.
Or of
Judas.
Gospel of Judas, something different. Gospel of Judas. But like, if we're gonna call it the Gospel of Judas or we're gonna call it the Q, that doesn't really matter to me. Like,
okay.
I'm using those two things interchangeably at this point.
Certainly. No, that makes sense.
But like, the document Whit had held itself out as being the truth.
Yes.
But in that document, there were instructions on how to find out that the document was actually a lie.
How to falsify this
claim. They would not be in the same place.
Like, it's a bad plan.
Now, they did not burn parchment back then because it was really hard to make. It was very expensive. So everything was overwritten.
Oh, sure.
So that would be why they didn't destroy it. But,
could have written
the location, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels fairly contrived. Who knows?
Yeah. But, it's fine. It's just like, it is the weird thing where it's like, they had like, I don't know, 3/5, maybe 4/5 of a story here, and then just did like a weird kind of fumble yada yada towards the end.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, why did like this, suddenly it gets to the end and it's like the stakes have dropped and the reasoning is kind of circular and this isn't nearly as exciting as what I wanted it to be to conclude like this big arc. It's like we're really, to be fair, the thing that this arc's doing that's exciting is bringing Whit back from the dead.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the focus. That is the thing that's exciting.
And that's like the best part when you listen to all three is them trying to find out where Whit is, and then he's hiding, and then he's dressed up at all these things. Like, that's the fun part.
It's called The Search for Whit. It's not called The Search for the Q document.
Right.
The search for the bones
the point
of
is
Christ.
that the point is that they find Whit, and that's exciting. And like, I think my enjoyment of this episode, even as a child, was hurt in that like I listened to Odyssey in such a non-linear manner that I never really
realized that he was gone.
Yeah, like I don't know that I ever drew a line to, oh, Whit's not around and then Whit is around. Like it.
So
because there are so many.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
Linearly.
Right. And
that,
so like that pays off. That's cool.
So yeah.
But it's like I was jumping from album to album, and especially as we get like Hal Smith is like Whit's in every episode, and then like as we get Hurlinger and beyond, there are a lot of times where like Whit's just not around
Right.
for an episode, and so like that was so normal to me that I don't think I ever really grasped the he died, like the actor died. They wrote Whit off the show for 2 years and then brought him back in this episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I think I very much just kind of rolled with, oh yeah, Whit's been gone for a couple weeks in the Middle East, and now we go and find him, and that's fun. And I don't recognize there being any difference between voice actors, and like it just wasn't. That part of it didn't pack the punch, and I think, yeah, even now it's hard to appreciate how huge a deal that would be.
Well, and I didn't listen to them air on the radio.
Sure,
I listened to the tapes.
Yeah.
So I didn't appreciate the same span of time, but I
yeah.
understand the span of episodes.
Yeah, right. Which is significant. I mean, like you can still.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening
it's
to every episode between when he leaves and when he comes back, that's a lot of episodes.
right. It's like 4 albums or something.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing to be laughed off.
Well, and it's something that even if you didn't notice it right away, you would notice it eventually. Like, or like if you noticed it right away and then it kind of got normal, and then like it's long. It's a long enough period of time that there's multiple experiences that you can have with Whit's absence there.
Yeah, and it's like this is the first interaction that we are seeing on screen of Whit and Tasha, which is like interesting.
Right.
Because there's like all the implication during Blackguard, and she's talking about, it being, TA418 was her and Whit, like the A is Avery, and like all of that stuff. So that it just feels like, so when they just know each other in this episode, and that's cool, and you get it. But it's like the reality is like, this is the first time we have them interacting. This is the first time that Jason is this actor for Jason is interacting with this actor for Whit.
Right.
Like they were previously 2 different people in the Mortal Coil. Like it's just like there is so much happening here. And so Jason goes back to Odyssey, and Whit is staying in the Middle East, and Eugene's staying with him for a time.
Yeah, which I didn't remember.
Yeah, it's
Very
cool.
fun.
It's a good note to end on, and the Whit and Eugene stuff in this episode is strong.
Yes, it really is. Like we said, Whit supporting Eugene's kind of crisis of faith, and I feel like Whit does a good job of, like you said, like validating Eugene's experience, but also like hearing his concern, but also reminding him that he doesn't have to be afraid if he chooses to place his trust elsewhere.
And they bring back the best parts of Whit for this episode.
Definitely. Yeah. The fun. I would say even across like the part 2 and part 3, like all of Whit's presence in this 3-parter is really strong and kind of the highlights, like you said.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And so they're in the airport, and Jason is flying back to Odyssey, and Dylan said Eugene's staying with Whit, and they ask Whit when he's going to come back, and what does he say? Like, you'll never know. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about it before, but like part of the thing with these episodes is they thought that this might be them writing Whit off the show.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were written that they could go either way depending on fan reaction, and they don't put out another episode after this for like 3.5 months. Like this is like a big break in the Odyssey chronology. Like they're like, all right, we got these episodes out. Now we're like taking the summer off.
Yeah.
We're all going to go think up ideas and listen to the feedback and, search our hearts, trying to figure out what we're going to do on the other side. Which is, it's so interesting once again, like thinking through it with that context, not having that context growing up.
Right.
Like just having the and then the next episode starts playing. Like,
Exactly. You don't think about the fact that there are creatives involved, and this was the climax of their creative efforts for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Anything else you feel like you got to get off your chest about this episode or about all 3 of these episodes? Like what else do we need to hit on the way out?
I think it's interesting how quickly they get Jason into a relationship and get him out of a relationship.
Yep.
Like, if you listen to them chronologically, he's only engaged for, 4 or 5 episodes?
Yeah. It's not many.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean,
It's like
we talk. It's
album.
Love is in the Air, parts 1 and 2. There's an episode where they almost get married that we didn't cover in between these two, which is like the one where he like tries to get married at town hall and everyone freaks out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And then there's this one, and then like we're done, and like it feels like. It's funny because it's like later in this arc we'll talk about For Whom the Wedding Bells Toll.
Right.
Which feels like Jason and Tasha should be one of the couples involved in all that.
Right.
And it's just like, no.
No.
Like we're just, nope. We've done it. We've solved their relationship. Like Tasha's off to go do her own thing. Jason's gonna do his. Like it's
But don't you think Small Town Odyssey, like the ideal way that ends is that they end happily ever after and have kids and do that whole thing?
Yeah, but she's not a Christian.
Exactly. They poisoned the well. They've been poisoning the well.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
that is like the fundamental like
Irreconcilable difference
right.
between
She's
the two.
never like this is never actually has a shot. But
Know that I
but yeah.
realized that.
and this is the final episode with Tasha in it
Interesting.
as this actress. She then comes back in album 50, being voiced by a different actress, and then returns again in the Rydell Revelations. Spoiler alert for those episodes.
Please
but
don't
this
listen
is,
to them.
Yeah,
I
they're
did.
bad. But like this is it. She's done. Goodbye, Tasha from the show. You were so good in A Name Not a Number and pretty dang charming in Love is in the Air and a little bit disappointing in Search for Whit.
Yeah. But still hot, nonetheless.
Still hot, for sure, as we've discussed many times now. Do you need to weigh in on Tasha's hotness? Is that
She
I mean,
sounds
I always
attractive.
Yes,
She sounds pretty.
attractive. My version of Tasha is brunette.
Oh, okay. Okay,
A
you're
little
yep.
darker complexion,
yeah.
darker eyes, maybe an ethnic nose. I could like Aunt Renee's nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No shade, Nay. Love your nose.
All right. Colleen, what would
Yeah.
you like to plug?
Oh, great question. Good shoes.
Yeah.
Definitely plugging get good shoes. It makes a huge difference in like just posture and joints and all that lovely stuff.
All right.
Also, teachers.
Yeah.
It's the end of school. Give your teacher a hug. They put a lot of time and effort into this school year. And yeah, it's easy to walk out and not think about it until it's too late.
We do love teachers.
Teachers
This
are great.
podcast
Education's cool.
famously pro teacher.
Yeah, one of the few.
Yeah. Not too many of us left. It's all these pro AI podcasts.
All right. Well, we did it. We made it through the Search for Whit.
Yeah, this is insane. It really
That's-
ended with a whimper, not a bang.
You
It
know,
really did.
but we've still got more episodes to
But we
talk
still
about
got more
in
episodes.
the mega arc.
Now I've got an Indiana Jones hat. Like, yeah, this
true.
this series has been a big transformation.
And you've seen
for
Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
which is
Oh.
huge.
yeah.
You
I
didn't
mean,
see Indiana Jones?
He had like barely watched Raiders.
I watched
for the
Raiders,
first
like,
You
episode.
have Our Father and not watch Raiders like 5 times.
I never watched it with him. I watched it with Brendan once.
I know.
What?
Me and Dad always
But he
watched
loves
Jurassic Park
Harrison
and
Ford.
Godzilla and all. I mean, I spent a lot of time with our father. We've watched plenty of
Yes.
movies.
Just not that one.
Yeah.
What about like The Patriot or any of
Nope.
the other?
I was too young to watch those because those are R. The Patriots
We're too
are.
young, but you're not too young.
Yeah.
You haven't been too young for a while now, sir.
No, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But like when the Patriot was in its, social relevance height, where he would be interested in thinking about it and
Air
watching
Force
it.
One. All those.
All right.
Well, I am glad that you have finally watched the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm kind of confused why I had to wait for the search for Whit for that one, but okay.
I mean, you can ask
Yeah.
the same thing about It's a Wonderful Life. So
That one makes more sense.
true.
But anyway, that is all for this week. We will be back next week for episode 362, The Right Choice, Part 1.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Godspeed.